Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show. Yeah, we changed it from podcast to show. I'm not sure why, but talk about putting on a show. Man, my co-pilot for this week, he's been on a couple of times before. I'm always honored to have him on. He's one of my favorite people I've ever known, much less players I've ever covered. Eddie George, head coach, Tennessee State University. Welcome back to the Tim May Show.
It's always a pleasure, Tim. Great to see your smiling face, brother.
Yeah,
you have not aged at all in the last 20 years that I think I've known you. You look great. Look the same.
I thought you were going to say the last 20 minutes. I feel like I've aged a lot. Man. I have been gray ever since you've known me. That is true, ladies and gentlemen. But Eddie, let's just jump right into it, man. You're going into, well, like I said in the warm-up, you're going into what feels like your 15th year at Tennessee State, right?
Yeah, it sure does. You talk about gray. I had to shave this fresh gray off this morning, man. No, it's going into year 3. It definitely feels like I've been here for a while. Thoroughly immersed into the coaching lifestyle, the culture, the day-to-day grind, what it takes, a lot of learning lessons, a lot of changes, just growth in me personally speaking. It stretched me as a man across the board, things that I never thought that I would get into prior to taking the job. And it's put me outside of my comfort zone in a lot of areas. And it's been thrilling. It's been fun. It takes a lot of patience, compassion, a tremendous amount of due diligence. Constantly tweaking and hiring people on staff is probably the biggest challenge of it all. Bringing in the right people, the right fit, and not just your coaching staff, which is very important, but the external staff, your DFO, your operations, your medical staff, your trainers, janitors, even. Because they all drive the culture as well. Because if they're not on the same page, it really creates dysfunction in what you're trying to create from the inside out, and what I'm trying to do. And taking on this opportunity, and this again is no disrespect to the previous regime, but from what I know in my own personal experience, everything starts from that locker room out. So anybody that touches football, from academics to nutrition to sports performance, coaches, anybody, we all have to be on the same page and be speaking the same language and growing in the same direction. Yeah. And that's operating with excellence in everything that we do, and just from a 60,000 foot perspective. Yeah. So that's been the challenge, and at times it's daunting. It can be frustrating. You wish that things moved at a faster pace, but I like to say that the obstacle is the way. If it is an obstacle, it's sitting right in front of you, and that's the challenge. And then we have to go through that in order to get to the other side. So that's kind of where I'm at, man, in year 3.
Yeah. Yeah, no shortcuts, I think is the main thing. You didn't expect any, though. I mean, I'm not trying to blow smoke here, but you knew it was going to be a job, but you've been learning on the job along with the skills you brought to it, right? And
yes, sir.
And just putting those together. And I think the word that Urban Meyer used to use, I think, was the word alignment, like you were just talking about a while ago, making sure everybody's speaking the same language. I mean, you're a tight end, a little Michael Brewster right there, your tight ends coach. He's not saying something to a tight end that you wouldn't want to be said, and vice versa. There's an example. And but then it goes all the way through, like you said, the nutritionist, what's expected from players, what's expected from coaches. Yes. Have you developed a handbook by now, or is it pretty much a lecture series still?
It's a little bit of both. It's still a lecture series, but I put those pieces together as I go. And I call it the blueprint.
Yeah.
We're, Big Blue, and it's the blue, the tiger paws, the print, and it's the blueprint of what I'm trying to create. And it really all starts with, 4 cornerstones with me, Tim. It's, working on the mental, working on a championship mindset, We're telling ourselves every single day, what are we listening to? Who are our kids exposed to on a daily basis and around each other? And what is the mentality of that on a consistent basis? We talk about the social element, bringing in the right people, like I touched on, the right coaching staff, the right players, the right type of player, not just in terms of the physical attributes, but in terms of what's in his heart, what he wants to accomplish in his leadership capabilities, what is he willing to sacrifice his personal goals for the greater good of the team, understanding that, hey, if the team's successful, I become successful. We talk about the physical, and in terms of development, where we are at the FCS level. Hey, we may get guys for 2 years out of high school, and they may, leave and jump in the portal and go into a Power 5 school. And I have to embrace that and adjust my thinking to that part. Like, hey, we might be a feeder system, and say, okay, we might have to be the best feeder system there is. So I have to invest a lot into our sports performance and development. It's not expecting kids coming in, they're ready made. You have to get them ready. And then there's the spiritual aspect of it. It's challenging our players, our staff to be spiritually connected individually and then collectively as a unit. That team spirit, that selflessness, the oneness, the unity, the larger purpose, and not just saying the words, but really having that be a lifestyle. So within that, we're learning to have relationships, real relationships, buying in with ownership, and then taking that standard and raising that standard with true leadership. So in a nutshell, this is a self-development program through football that I'm teaching young men how to be men, and I'm growing as a man as well. So it's been a marriage of both. It's been struck the balance with both of them. Still lecturing, but also building out my manual.
Yeah. And then on 3rd and 4, man, you got to have somebody make a play, right? I mean, it really does finally come down to who you got. I mean, whether it's right tackle, your quarterback or whatever, it finally does come down to that defines whether or not you're in a lot of people's purview a success or not, right? I mean, that's the interesting part about your job, because you can be doing all of that stuff, but man, the W's are what matter, right?
Yeah, and to be quite frank with you, you look at our record the last couple of seasons. We've had won 9 games in 2 years. Prior to us, they won 9 games in 5.
Yeah.
We were ranked in the top 5 defensively in red zone in the country, in FCS. We were second in the country in block kicks on special teams. A turnover ratio, we were top 25 in the nation. So we are building blocks. Physicality is a big thing for me. And you're right. It's giving our kids the confidence that when they're in those pressure situations, the 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, that they can execute, even if the team knows it's coming their way, even if it is predictable. Like, hey, line up and stop it. And so that's kind of where we are in terms of finding those type of guys. Really, if you're willing to sacrifice, if you're willing to, as a quarterback, run for the first down versus constantly looking downfield for the open throw so you can pad your stats. And so it's those things that we're constantly doing and developing in these kids. And it's been thrilling to watch. And, each cycle that comes in, we're on our 3rd iteration, was really our 2nd iteration of players, because COVID year, and then you couldn't manipulate the roster like we wanted to because of the APR and a whole bunch of other things surrounding that. We had to manage it much like a NFL roster, if you will.
Yeah.
We've had to develop some guys, and they had to leave by attrition. And we're bringing in an influx of new kids. They're buying in. They come in day one, understanding what the standard is, so I don't have to repeat that part. Our older upperclassmen are starting to take over. So that culture piece is starting to take care of itself. Now, can we develop the tenacity and the confidence and the grit and the mental toughness and that nastiness that we need when it's in the fourth quarter. You got to grind it out and find a way to win and find a way to get that first down or a touchdown. Can you do that? And that's the fun part that we're developing now.
I was going to say, I've used that word quite a few times, nastiness or nasty, because it really does come down to that. I mean, I was talking with Paris Johnson Jr. and Luke Whippler when they worked out against each other in the pro day at Ohio State, and boy, they were just getting after it. I mean, like two heavyweight fighters, and that's what you got to have, right? I mean, from your cornerbacks to your quarterback to your left tackle.
Yeah, the one thing that we say at Tennessee State, it's iron sharpens iron. This is the phase that we're in, summer conditioning. This is where the heat turns up. Literally, figuratively speaking, it's going to be 97 degrees. We're out there running, our sprints, and then after that, doing some extra work. That's very competitive, and we're lining up and we're talking trash. We're building. We're competitively building each other up in a positive way, and there's no nonsense. So it's getting to that point, and my point is, it will eventually lead to victories. I can point to 5 or 6 plays or 7 plays last season. I showed my team this back in the spring where we're close against really good football teams. We went out to Eastern Washington, first game of the year last year, team that's in the playoffs every single year, lost by a touchdown.
Yeah.
Played Jackson State, who was putting up 1 million points at the FCS level, held them to 16 points to 1 touchdown deep into the fourth quarter. Our offense hasn't been around each other to really develop that trust, that chemistry that we needed to find a way to score. So that's a lesson learned. Played in Middle Tennessee State, got our behinds kicked by them. They played behind me the following week, beat them. But we've looked to every game that we lost, we had an opportunity that was missed, a drop pass here or jumping off sides there. We were able to move the ball deep into the red zone at the 1 yard line and could not score. Those things. So we're knocking on the door. Now it's a matter of putting it in its proper perspective. To see, now we've got to kick down the door. Yeah. We've got to go in and take it. We can't quit. There's no quit in us. We can't get discouraged if a bad play happens. Next play. Even in practice, next play. But we've got to be competitive. You've got to come out to practice every single day with intentionality. That is important. Not just to get better, but how are you going to get better? Yeah. How are you going to work on your drops, your footwork in the pocket, looking downfield? What specific areas are you going to improve in that you're going to lock in on? So that way you're not focused on anything else but that intention for the day. Yeah. It's constantly preaching that and hammering that home every single minute of the day. And that extends out to the staff as well. So that's where we're at.
By the way, there's a great line in National Lampoon Vacation where Clark Griswold has put up his Christmas lights. He's about to make them come on, but they don't come on. And his daughter says to her grandfather, he works really hard. To the grandfather. And the grandfather says, so do washing machines.
That's right.
It's not what you're working on. It's, are you working on the right things? It's what you're just talking about. Not just working for work's sake. And right. I know, Eddie, I texted you last year during the season, man. You can see that this thing is coming. You can see it's coming, but you pay sometimes hard dues, big dues to get to that point. Hey, and you brought him up, or you didn't bring him up. You brought up the name of the school he used to be at, Jackson State. Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. I don't want him to get mad at me. What do you make of what? Number one, he's gone to Colorado, but then number two, I mean, you talk about cleaning house or having people leave voluntarily, whatever you want to call it. Are you stunned by what's gone on there? Or, I mean, just what does that just tell you about the future of college football?
Well,
because a lot of people, if this works, there are going to be a lot of people using that blueprint. Go ahead.
Well, I tell you what, it's the same blueprint that he's done everywhere he's been as a coach. And not many people understand that Coach Prime has been doing this the last, I want to say, decade, back to his Little League program, the Truth program, and then high school coaching his sons there, and then So he has his system in place. And what he's been able to do, he's like, listen, I'm going to bring in the guys that I know, that I trust, they're going to get the job done.
Yeah.
And if it requires a year that we have to purge and prune out the bad fruit and even the mediocre fruit and have growth and leave room for the excellent fruit to come to fruition, that's what he's going to do. And he has a vision. So, I guess 50 or so players have left, and it can be a good thing for both parties because they may not be willing to go through the daily grind for what he's bringing to the table. Yeah. And Prime has his way of presentation. I mean, yes, he's a great showman. He's a great salesman, but what he's selling is the real deal. And I had an opportunity to compete against him the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And his product on the field speaks for itself. Those guys, they're physical, they're fast, but the thing that I love the most is that they love each other. They respect one another. And that's what I see. They truly enjoy playing for each other. And that's the one thing that I say that he can probably do in his first year is I'm not going to look at necessarily his record. I'm going to look at, hell, if they're getting their asses kicked, excuse my French, in coach mode, if they're getting their asses kicked against TCU and they're down by 20 points in the fourth quarter, are they going to quit?
Yeah.
Or are they going to keep fighting?
Yeah.
That's where the magic is made in those moments. So, and are they going to build from that week to week to week to week? And I think he's going to do it because, Coach Prime has been a Hall of Famer at every single level. And I don't see anything different what he's doing now.
Yeah. The buy-in is the most important part.
Right. There you go.
And it's got to be legit what you're buying into. And players know that, coaches know that, because the coaches are buying in to this new talent they're bringing in and stuff. I mean, just like I know you at least keep an eye on the transfer portal and stuff. And before we move on real quickly, what have you just learned most about dealing with the transfer portal, both in terms of maybe either players leaving or players coming in? What obviously they've got to fit, they've got to fit your culture, et cetera. But this is with us to stay, right? And you have to embrace it, right?
You do. I wish there was a little bit more accountability for the player. It's great that they can leave day one and go and play that same year, but it also affords them to run away from adversity, or not willing to compete, or just leaving for the sake of getting more Instagram followers or more money. And it really exposes your true intent. It's helped us to some degree. And there are I want to say close to 3,000 players in the portal still without a home. Yeah. And there aren't enough schools to go around to accommodate anybody, all of them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in there. So you have to do your due diligence on these players. And I think it's helped the schools of the rich that are abundant in terms of talent and resources, like Ohio State, Oklahoma, USC, because they're getting a tick for tack, great player for great player. All right. And they're able to, they've played, they have a resume, they have some games behind them, and they might want to shift opportunities at a different school for exposure, more NIL money, whatever that is, and that's fine. But for us, we're finding guys at that top level, running from competition, or they haven't played a whole lot, or they're looking for, NIL opportunities, and they will have a true interest or a true love of the game.
Yeah.
We've had to, look at it differently and say, hey, maybe, we have to look at different opportunities, like taking some of these high school players that these upper schools aren't taking, the Power 5 schools aren't taking necessarily, and developing them.
That's right.
And understanding that, hey, we're in the development business and there's nothing wrong with that. Whereas the Power 5 schools are looking for more ready-made players. and because they can afford to do that. They have 85 scholarships.
Yeah.
And I embrace that part. I love the grind. I love to develop. Hell, I was developed. I didn't come into Ohio State, fully made. I had my strengths. I could run your ass over, and I had that afforded me to, get in, goal line situations. But I had to develop into the every down back that allowed me to become a Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah.
And there were certain nuances, certain things I had to work on, and I relish that. I enjoy that. So, and college football is an interesting place, Tim, and I think you see where it's going. The next 2 years, I can see the big boys taking their own ball, making their own rules, their own regulations, their own championship series. They're going to pay a salary to these players, probably cap it, and kind of go from there and create their own deal. It's coming down to really the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah.
The Big Ten for the last decade or so, they've been playing Monopoly. Yeah. They went and got Boardwalk at Park Place, and they went back and got Baltic Avenue, with Maryland, the DC area. You got the LA market, you got the Chicago market, you got the New York market at Rutgers. And the biggest golden goose is going to be Notre Dame. And if they're able to land that one, it's going to be a deal where it's the SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC dissolves, the Big 12 dissolves, and we're seeing what's happening to the Pac-12. So, and Colorado, honestly, might be the next big one because they have a nice TV market in Denver. So that could be a huge get for Prime. So it's a lot to look at when you look at the business of college football right now.
I like you because you're an actor at heart. I mean, you're a trained thespian. And you brought up the Golden Goose under the Golden Dome, which is Notre Dame. Yeah. And Notre Dame is having to play a warm-up game in Dublin, Ireland this year before they take on the Tennessee State University. Was it Blue Tigers?
No, yeah. We are big blue.
By the way, it was really interesting how the word blue came out of your mouth so smoothly, has come out of your mouth so smoothly so many times, when in fact you wouldn't utter that 30 years ago, whenever that was.
I know.
Back in the day.
I know. God has a funny sense of humor, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yes, he does. That's not the blue. That's not the blue. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what people say. But anyway, getting to it, y'all open with Notre Dame at Notre Dame. Just, is that exciting as you look at it right now? Is it daunting? What is the words you would use for the challenge you face going against Marcus Freeman, another former Buckeye who's now a head coach, and his horde?
It's exciting. Number one, it's a great opportunity for us to go compete against the top talent in the country. The guys that we have coming in, we don't blink an eye to that. Yeah, I think, they're probably bigger, faster, stronger. But we faced bigger, faster, stronger. We played against Mississippi State. We played against the guys that went day one in the NFL draft. So it's not anything we haven't seen. It's a nationally televised game. It gives us an opportunity to show our kids their talent, to show our brand, to show how we're building as a university, as a sports program, as a football program, and to go into one of the greatest venues, or one of the greatest venues in the country, and in South Bend, with all the great games, the great players that have played in there, that have graced the sideline, to come out of that tunnel. It's going to be a wonderful experience for our players that they'll talk about for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And, we're going to go in and we're going to go and compete. And we're going to go and compete hard. We're going to go and play our game. We're going to coach hard. We're going to go in there expecting to win. And that's been my motto. It doesn't matter who we play, where we play. We can play you in the parking lot. It doesn't matter. We're going to have the same approach, the same ideas, and we're going to be very excited to see it.
You're 1-0 against Notre Dame as a player in 1995, one of the great games in your history. Helped propel you to the Heisman Trophy. Still, that picture is, a collector's item of you out in the open field with almost the entire Notre Dame team chasing you. You're not going to be intimidated, I don't think, by walking into that venue. Of course, Ohio State played there the next year. You were already gone to riches and fame in the NFL at that point. I'm trying to be as thespian as you are, but I'm not getting there. how do you keep your players from being, you know, what do you don't have to give me the secret right now, but is there a key, or is there a magic potion to keeping your players from just feeling intimidated when they walk in, where Rudy played, where Newt Rockne coached, and it's still the same stadium near the end of Newt Rockne's, you know what I'm talking about. Just all the ghosts there. Shake down the thunder. How do you keep your kids, your young men, focused on the task at hand and not being intimidated just by the venue?
We're focused on three things right now, and I told them, in order to win a championship, we have to master three other ships prior to that. And that relationship, the genuine relationship, that brotherhood, getting to know one another, willing to fight for one another. Because without that true love, that's what it comes down to, Tim, is the love for one another.
Yeah.
You can't go into enemy territory expecting a victory if that's not solid, rock solid, cohesive, and genuine. It's going to be us against the world.
Yeah.
The second thing is the ownership. And that's the buy-in, once again, of the standard, a real, genuine buy-in to living it, not just saying it, not just doing it when it's convenient, but really living it when no one is watching.
Yeah.
And the third thing is real leadership. Who are my leaders going to be? I have to find out who is leading this team from inside that locker room in a real way.
Yeah.
And we're locked in on developing that part. And it travels. We say, listen, we take three things with us. We take our run game, a defense, and body bags. And that's our mentality. And again, whoever we play, it doesn't matter. And it's like Hoosiers. We're going to measure the field. It's 110 yards long.
Yeah, 120 yards. Yeah,
120 yards long, 52 yards wide, whatever. Blah blah blah. The field goes the same, and it's going to be a rocking environment. It's going to be a hell of a deal. They don't have grass; they have AstroTurf. So there's no reason to slip and fall. It's going to be even kill. And what's going to change the outcome of this game and make it interesting is our ability to be aggressive with the football in terms of stripping it out, getting it on the ground. That's going to be our mentality. And if you're 6'6" and 260 pounds tight end and you look good, you're pretty, you can run guys over stiff arm, and hey, you catch that ball a couple times, it comes popping out. You're not running as aggressively as, you're running with a little bit more ball security. Your mind's different.
Yeah.
So we're really preaching, creating those opportunities for ourselves and going out there and having the time of our lives, and that's the key, is to create an opportunity just to say, hey, when they're battled, and let the chips fall where they may. And our guys are bleeding for an upset. They're praying for that, but we got to work for it first.
And remember the climactic scene in Hoosiers. He gathers them all around. This little bitty team is about to beat the big team, and he gathers them all around, and he creates a play where his primary player is a guinea pig or a deception, and all the players stand up, and Jimmy Chitwood finally leans into the huddle and says, "I'll make it." You remember? His best player makes the shot. So don't forget that part either. I know you won't, Eddie.
Nah. I
gotta, you know what I'm talking about. Somebody's got to step up. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, last thing. You got to go work with the Chicago Bears. What's the name of the program?
It's the Bill Walsh Fellowship Diversity Program.
Yeah.
It's been in existence for the last 30 years, and it affords men of color, of different backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, to get in front of different organizations. You have to apply for it.
Yeah.
And how it came about for me, the Chicago Bears wanted to bring in a couple of head coaches from the collegiate level.
Yeah.
And they recommended me. They reached out. And again, I couldn't go around the corner to meet with Mike Vrabel, and I'm still going to do that. And the Titans, I've seen how they've been able to do it. But this gave me an opportunity to see how somebody else does it differently. And to see kind of where Chicago is. I mean, they're kind of where we are as a program, in where they are as an organization, and the staff is great. Matt Eberfluss, I think, is an underrated coach. He is he's a man's man, runs his operation well, learned so much that I'm still processing and taking tidbits of what I learned from different drills, how they emphasize certain situations throughout camp, things that may come up, just being prepared for the unexpected, to focusing on the little things, the details, not cutting corners in any capacity, from how the players come into practice to how they egress to practice and leave the practice, to how they're getting in their meals sporadically throughout the course of the day, to recovery, the emphasis on just the mental part. It was just a wonderful experience that really 2 weeks, 3 weeks doesn't do enough justice. But what it did for me personally, it confirmed a few things that I was thinking, like, well, is this going to work? Can these kids, get it from a really high level thinking?
Yeah.
And can I don't want to say dumb it down. Can I simplify it to the point where it's digestible and they get it and it connects?
Yeah.
So it forces me to be a more simplified communicator to young men, because I have a tendency, I can talk over somebody's head with stuff and spirituality, yoga, and all, so I gotta be mindful of that for myself. So going there for the past few weeks was an awesome experience. And I keep thinking about it, and it's like, that's the quality, that's the standard, that's what I want to do, that's what I foresee for our program, for our young men, and that's the kind of organization I want to run. It's not perfect, but it's there. And from a X's and O's standpoint, this team was ranked number one in the league running the football. One of 3 to 5 teams in the history of the NFL to rush for 3,000 yards as a team.
Yeah.
So I was able to look at some things schematically, how they set things up, what their bread and butter is, how they're simplifying things for their team in terms of the type of scheme that they're going to run. And based off of that, how they're going to layer it in with the screens and the play action, the deep shots and the mid-range shots, third down. And Justin Fields is going to, in my mind, is going to have a breakout season. I think he's going to have an all-pro season. He looks good in the pocket, more comfortable, becoming more of a leader, putting his thumbprint on the offense. Really emerging as the voice and the face of the team, the spirit of the team, because he comes to work every single day.
Yeah.
Like, he competes every day.
Yeah.
It's no nonsense. In front of the class. First one in the building, last one to leave. He's writing copious notes. And there's a thing, you heard of LIFO and FIFO, right?
Yeah.
With counting terms, in terms of first in, first out, last in, last out. So I have a thing where I'm like, you want to be FILO. You want to be first in and last out.
Yeah.
Because if you are last in, first out, that's a liability. So
yeah.
If I say all that, I know I'm rambling.
No, that's great stuff.
That's what I've noticed from that team and how they're building it. And it's kind of where I am in terms of, okay, who are we? How can I take what I have based off of the guys that we have? What do we do best? And how we can simplify it? How can we build on that, build confidence in what we do, and really preach, the things that we want to become?
Hey, I got to ask you this, because everybody's listening to this is going to be going, so does Eddie George want to be an NFL head coach one day? I know right now you're just trying to make a first down against Notre Dame. That's
exactly.
Primary. But do you have aspirations bigger than Tennessee State? And I'm not trying to get you to leave Tennessee State in the next 2 years, 5 years, 8 years. But could you see yourself on that level? You were in those locker rooms forever.
Oh yeah,
you got this close to winning a Super Bowl. I mean, can you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I could see myself in that environment. You know, the guy, it was a good fit because the guys that were in that room wanted to be there and they were listening
yeah,
intently and they were hanging on every word that I was speaking about. And that was really refreshing to see. And it was like, okay, yeah, okay, it makes sense. And it lands differently.
yeah,
Um,
yes.
prior to taking this job, Tim, to be honest, man, I had visions of, winning an Oscar and a
I
Tony,
know.
right?
I don't know.
And
We'll
and
still go
like
down that
that,
road. That's another hour. But
yeah.
hey, I
So
don't know why
so
you're not in major movies right now, but that's another show.
right,
Go ahead now.
right. But like I said, man, God has other plans, and this opportunity allows me to coach my youngest son, and
Yeah, there you
it's
go.
bigger than myself. And that may happen. It may not happen as an actor. It could happen as a producer. Who knows? I mean,
Yeah,
there's so many ways it's gonna cat. But right now, I'm having fun at what I'm doing. The coaching world really has been a lot of fun, and I really enjoy growing in it each and every day.
yeah. And real quick before we go, bottom line is you were talking about all the stuff with the Bears and all the things we were talking about earlier. You touched on it without saying it out loud. In essence, at the bottom, at the bottom of the wick of the candle, coaches are teachers, man. And you're only as good as what you teach, because you can't be out there doing it, right? And
Right.
that's the essence of it, right?
Yes, sir.
Is developing those teaching skills so that the weakest link doesn't hold the chain back, right?
Right. And to motivate and to inspire
Yeah,
and to have them overachieve.
yeah, yeah,
And that's the key. And that's what I'm learning to do, is how do I get this unit to buy in and to overachieve and to think and to build better than where they are. So
yeah.
yeah.
I hope you told Justin that, boy, if he wins a Super Bowl, you'll let him touch your Heisman Trophy. He was a finalist, but only a few walk off the stage with the trophy. That would be funny. You walking off stage with a championship trophy as a coach, with the Heisman Trophy, and with an Oscar one of these days. That would be. I think that's a triumvirate, or what do you want to call it, holy triad to shoot for. What do you think, Eddie?
Hey man, it's called the He Got.
Yeah.
The He
Oh
Got.
no,
The
go
He
ahead.
Got is the Emmy, Oscar,
Oh
Tony,
yeah,
Grammy. So
yeah.
the He Got is the Heisman. So I would be the only man on the planet to ever do that. That would be crazy.
That would be sweet. I would pay money to go see the movie about that.
Yeah, I know. We got to make it happen some way
Yeah.
somehow. So,
Yeah. Well, ladies and
but we'll
gentlemen,
see.
my capable co-pilot, as you can tell, Eddie George, 1995 Heisman Trophy winner, former Buckeye, former NFL All-Pro running back, now head coach at Tennessee State University, and they're going to go in and soften up Notre Dame the first week of their season before Ohio State rolls in there, the fourth game of the year. Eddie, thanks once again for joining the Tim May Show.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me, Tim.
And until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you then.